jump right into this. Tell us what you've been up to since we last spoke.
Oh God, that was probably what? 8 months ago? Eight 8 months ago, or maybe even longer than that. Yeah. Um, my goodness. Really, it's beyond, it's kind of evolved beyond just, and I think when we spoke last time, and I think framing this, um, because everyone doesn't know have that background necessarily. Framing this, I'll just start with like a 10,000 foot view, just like a 5 minute thing about my story, and then we can jump into that if that's cool. So, yeah, it all goes back to rain for me, just to spark your listeners' memory. When I was actually at ski club with my friends in eighth grade, I was only 14 years old. So, on the first run, my friends and I were on the chairlift, and the chairlift went right over the terrain park, which is where all the jumps were. I knew snowboarding jumps, that is, like skiing and snowboarding. And then I knew as soon as I saw it that I had to go off the biggest jump in the terrain park. So got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, took a breath of that crisp winter air, and confidently charged towards that jump with all my speed. And going up to the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard, and that's the last thing that I remember. So there are really three things that I credit for being able to be here today with you and your listeners and tell this story. The first of which, even though they wanted to bring a helicopter to the mountain to rush me to the hospital, and they couldn't because it was too windy. So out of all the paramedics in the area, there was only one who could intubate right on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. So he wasn't necessarily on every call, but he was the right person. The right paramedic showed up to the mountain that day. Second thing, although I wasn't wearing a helmet, the pair of goggles that I had on that went on the top of my head or over my eyes were very thick with a lot of padding. So not only I learned after the fact, not only did they brace my initial impact, but as I continued to roll down the mountain and continued to hit my head, the goggles moved and adjusted with each impact between my head and the ice. Then once I got to the hospital, I was out. I was in a coma in the ICU, unable to communicate with anyone. And each time the doctors would come into my room to share progress updates with my parents and let them know what was happening, the not so good news, not so good news, not so good news, as doctors do, especially a critical situation or a traumatic injury. They walked in, no fault of their own. They were just doing their job. But right in front of me, they started to share it. And my mom stopped them and she said, no, no, not in front of him. Because she understood that even though I was in a coma, I was still taking in information. So she made the doctors step outside the room. And that's where they shared with my parents that I probably wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or eat on my own ever again. Even if I was able to come out of the coma, there was a good chance that I would need 24-hour care for the rest of my life. And to my parents' credit, they didn't accept this like so many patients do as a death sentence. So they took the information, thanked the doctors, and allowed me to treat it like any other situation. So if you fast forward, I was in the coma for 3 weeks. I really don't remember a month because it was a partially induced coma because they had to wait for the swelling to come down in my brain. And a month after my accident, I started my journey. I was transported to a rehab hospital, and that's where my memories start, consciously start. I mean, I was even my eyes were open. Like I came out of the coma. There's videos of me from when I was in the ICU at the hospital. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. So the memories for me don't start until a month after my accident when I was transported to the rehab hospital. And It was right around this time that I started to unknowingly use a system to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital. So that's a STEP system. Now, STEP is an acronym. I'll give like a 10,000 foot view, and then at the end, if anyone's interested, I can let them know how they can download it for free. STEP stands for support. Make sure you have the support of your family and friends right from the beginning. This is going to have you falling back on relationships that you built prior to your setback. T is trust. Trust that once you take your first step, your next step is always going to be available to you. And this also starts by trusting that voice that we all have inside of ourselves that is telling us what we should do. And how I like to illustrate this. So around the time right after I was transported to the rehab hospital, my parents were meeting with my team of doctors and therapists, and they were saying, "Okay, what do we need to do?" They would meet with them every week. They were my support. They meet with them every week, and they said, "What do we need to do to make sure Nick makes a full recovery?" I heard in the back of my head, "You're going to run out of the hospital." So then running out of the hospital became our common goal, and what we were all striving for each and every day and every week. Back to the acronym, is energy. So maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. Medication has the potential to get in the way of that. Um, and then P is persistence. So persistence, once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and taking your next step, no matter how small. And by continuing to move forward every day, you're building an unstoppable momentum, and you're helping yourself build an unstoppable momentum that's going to carry you through the tough times. So that's what propelled me. And less than 60 days later, so total of 90 days after my accident, I realized my goal of running out of the hospital. And really, I would have liked it to, but it wasn't like the work was done. That was really the beginning for me, if anything. And I still can't shake that feeling um, that I'm just starting. That I'm like I'm just getting started. So after running out of the hospital, I had to continue to go to outpatient therapy for another 6 months, along with being tutored all summer long, 5 days a week, in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. I think that's a perfect time to take a break and see where we go.
I love that you've shared that story, and every time you share it with me, Nick, I don't ever get bored of it. I just love it even more because it's a story of triumph and inspiration to me. So, for you, now that time has passed, looking back at what you went through and where you are today, what are some of the emotions that you're experiencing?
So I think that's a great question. I think the more and more I share it, it comes out differently every time, depending on what that show, um, what the host, what the audience, what everyone needs to hear. And I believe that, like I believe that in my soul that it comes out differently because that's what you were meant to hear at that time. So I think I touched on it. Now I'm gonna, even though I said I'm not going to do this, I'm gonna do this. I touched on it last time. So that going through that experience was so quick to me. And at the time, it didn't seem like it was quick. Of course, I was only 14 years old when I got into my accident. So going through that felt like that time in the hospital felt like a lifetime. And doing the outpatient therapy felt like a lifetime. I'm sure you can relate to this, Terrain, that when you're younger, time is compressed. So things that seem like 6 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out, they they seem like a lifetime away. However, they're really not that far. And the older I get, I'm really seeing that in that time is definitely a subjective thing. So um, going through that experience, really that was before like I said, I unknowingly used this type of system. So I didn't know that I was doing this system. I was just unknowingly doing it. And then what I touched on last time was in 2012, while I was a realtor, I actually developed a voice issue. So I had like a lot of tension in my voice. That's like how it sounded. However, that wasn't how it felt. I didn't think there was anything wrong. I just my voice sounded different. And when I had to get through um, that really proved something to me, Terrain, and that was that, oh, okay, like I had my snowboarding accident, I was in a coma, and then I had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again after the doctors told my parents that I probably wouldn't. Like, okay, that was just something that happened when I was younger. Not a big deal. That's like it kind of is a big deal. That's like the more and more I'm like sharing this and talking to other people, like it kind of is a big deal. So then when I had to overcome the voice challenge, I developed the issue in 2012. I wound up, for time's sake, I wound up in a voice specialist office about a year later. And I started receiving Botox injections into my vocal folds along with their higher level speech therapy. And I had to do this for 7 years, get these Botox injections along with their higher level voice therapist. So I would lose my voice. And then as it was coming back, as the Botox was wearing off, I would work with their speech therapist. Like, I don't want to say just like speech therapists. They were even more advanced than that. Um, Going through that, I there were some emotional times, Terrain, where um, to to kind of answer your earlier question, there were a few times where I was just like, "Oh my God, I've been working at this for like 7 years, and it's still not getting better." I mean, the thing that really comes to mind for me that was really like that really hit me, I would say emotionally, is like when at the end of 2019, so in September of 2019, I was really I was holding off. I could have used another Botox treatment. However, when I do that, I didn't have the ability to project my voice. And we had our big annual event coming up, which I was speaking and sharing my story. So I didn't want to lose my ability to be able to project my voice. So I held off on getting that Botox injection probably a little longer than I should have, and it was maybe 6 or 7 months after my previous one. I did the talk in September, so like the middle to the end of September, no middle of September. I did my talk. Then I got on the schedule to have a Botox treatment, an injection, and I went there and did that. And I thought I was like okay, good, I'm back on track. Then shortly after getting that, and this is all self-induced. So I actually ran in a half marathon after, like, almost immediately, a few days later after getting that Botox treatment. Uh, Never connected. I didn't connect that doing that was going to it was going to use up the Botox. Like I learned something going through that is that when you stress your body out, when you push your body like to the limits, it uses up that Botox faster. So in December, I was actually starting to get down on myself because I was like, oh my God, I've been working at this for 6, 7 years now. Um, Coming up on 7 years. I've been doing everything. Like I started to get a little down on myself, but then I just said, you know what? If I have to get these Botox treatments for the rest of my life, I'm gonna continue to do it. Because the reason I came to that conclusion is every time I went back to get a Botox treatment, my voice, the voice therapist told me, I'm sorry, the voice specialist told me, the one that's like really fine tunes and there are only like 35 of these doctors in the whole country, on the whole continent, in North America. And one of them was right in Boston. So this guy, this specialist said to me every time I went in, he goes, wow, your voice is like, I know you need it. You need a Botox injection, but your voice is a little better. Like every time you come back, it's a little better, a little better. And to me, that's the only validation that I needed. So even though I got down on myself that one time, um, I was thinking to myself that what helped me keep going, as long as I'm getting that positive feedback from the voice specialist, that my voice is continuing to improve, albeit slowly, it's continuing to improve. I'm gonna keep working. I'm gonna keep, and what I mean working. So I would get the Botox injection. I would lose my voice for 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes I wouldn't lose my voice at all. The really screwy thing with Botox, there's so much about the voice that they don't know, even to this day. So there are sometimes I'd go and get a Botox treatment and I wouldn't even lose my voice. But usually, um, generally speaking, my voice, I lose it for 2 or 3 weeks, and then when it's coming back, I get to work on it. So I had appointments with their speech pathologists. The speech pathologist gave me voice exercises that I could do. In addition to that, how I was taking care of my energy, I was doing all kinds of natural treatments on my own. No one told me to do this. I was just doing them on my own. So like Tuina, it's basically, if you or none of your listeners are familiar with it, it's basically it's Chinese body work, basically. It's like energy work, like body work. So I would do that each time between Botox injections. I do that. I do craniosacral therapy, or myofascial release. That's another word for like the specialty that I get done, and I still get done to this day. So I would do all of this in between the Botox treatments. So I get those natural treatments, I get my exercises, I would keep working. I just kept moving forward. And as long as I was doing that and still seeing improvement, I wasn't going to beat myself up. I wasn't going to get down on myself. The amazing thing after having that kind of realization, that epiphany that, okay, I'm fine. I just got to keep going. That I stopped beating myself up. I called, got on the calendar to get a Botox injection. Terrain, believe it or not, that was actually the last Botox injection that I ever needed. So, I mean, the phrase, the common thing is, it's escaping me right now, but it's like, the darkest hour. No, that's it. The darkest hour is right before the dawn. So yeah, what that time was emotional, but I mean, especially at the end there. And I just share that with people, and that goes back to persistence. I really like to share that with people because that gets that helps a lot of people. That there are too many people in this world that I see every day and every week, unfortunately, that give up. They give up way too soon. Just because, and I'll go in a different direction here because I think this is what you wanted to talk about. You alluded to it earlier. Um, they give up because they're not seeing progress. They're overwhelmed. Is another one. So I mean, if I can just like impart anything, is just to keep going. As long as you keep moving forward, and I had to tell myself that even at the end there, in December and January, December 2019, January 2020, I had to give myself a pep talk. I had to tell myself that. Um, as long as I was seeing progress, I was just going to keep working and keep going forward. And I just think there are too many people that give up. That's a huge part of persistence.
For me, Nick, one thing that I've noticed is that there's two things. One, you'll learn the most about in a relationship. You'll learn the most about the other person through conflict resolution, meaning that the conflicts that you can resolve together, you'll learn a lot about that person's character. And from an individual perspective, a singular perspective, you'll learn a lot about yourself through the traumas that you can recover from. Maybe not get rid of, but work through. And so when you shared that, it made me realize how important it is not only to push through if you can and when you can, but don't give up on yourself because many times we'll experience feelings of overwhelm when we're trying to work through something, especially if we're not progressing at the rate that we want to progress. For example, someone may say that I want to heal from this injury or from this trauma within 6 months, and then 5 months and 29 days and at 11:59 p.m. they're stressing, right? Because they realize they're not where they thought where they're going to be. So it kind of cheapens the progress when they should be celebrating the progress. What are some of the ways that you celebrate yourself and how far you've come on your journey?
Well, still to this day, Terrain, like I alluded to earlier, to this day, I still get tweeted out monthly. So usually it's every 5 weeks. However, this past cycle was 4 weeks because I guess for lack of a better term, my master, my teacher was he's going to China for 3 weeks, taking a bunch of people to China to his institute there for 3 weeks. So I wasn't going to get the opportunity to see him again. So that's why I only saw him after 4 weeks. So I still though I get that done every 5 weeks usually, and then I also get the myofascial release every 5 weeks. And with those, both of those two things, um, conjunction of that is I work with a naturopath. So I just shared this with Ming and some of that's his, Dr. Ming Wu. That's what his name is. So I just shared that on Thursday when I was at his office that um it's not that I'm like just doing there are people that are just doing medical or just doing one thing like working with like a Chinese energy healer like he's a Tai Chi and Tai Chi and Qigong master too. Um there's too many people that are like either one like that's it 100%, I'm not doing anything else. I think I also, in addition to those two things, I also see a naturopathic doctor, and I have been seeing a naturopath for 20 years now. And I had to go to him right after I got out of the hospital to kind of purge my body of all the toxins that were pumped into me to keep me alive. So that being said, the reason I feel so good, I think, right now from this past treatment that I got on Thursday from Ming is because I just did a cleanse, a Kitchery cleanse, it's called, where all you eat. is this one thing. It's Ayurvedic medicine. All you eat is khichdi for a week, along with taking a few herbs and other supplements, and no coffee, no alcohol. It's pretty strict, and I think this down to even this was the first time I was so strict as to do no nuts. That was this last cleanse I did about a month ago. I just doing it though. I just feel so amazing. Like I feel so great. My energy is amazing right now, and um, I just think there are too many people that are either focused on 100% medical or one or the other 100% natural. But you have to marry the two. You have to do both. Um, and I don't know if that answered your question. I think I went completely in a different direction, but
Let me ask you this then. For those who have gone through a traumatic experience, what is something that you have learned about yourself that you want to share with them to give them hope that they can work through it?
the only thing, like to me, when I was going through my snowboarding accident and when I was in the hospital, the only thing, and this was part of my support and the atmosphere that they created around me, was they framed it to me, Terrain, almost like, okay, this happened. Yeah, it's unfortunate. This happened, whatever. And you can fill in the blank there. I'm talking about my accident here. I can even talk about it with, okay, my voice issue here. So this happened. We get it. There's nothing we can do to change that. Now, the natural course of things, what's going to happen is you're going to get through this. You're going to get everything back. And the goal, or not even the goal, just like what everyone's shooting towards right now is like 100% back to normal, get everything back and on with your life. I forget what the word is called. I learned it in a conference, remediation or something. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Um, that's, I think, the number one thing because it was never, for me, it was never framed that, oh, okay, too bad, this is the too bad for you. You're going to be reduced and you're going to have this physical handicap for the rest of your life. Like you're going to be less than what you were. To me, it was always in my head was oh, okay, this happened. Now we just got to get through it, and then we're going to get right back to life. And I think there are a lot of people out there, maybe even framed by doctors and doing the best they can for liability and everything. They can't paint a rosy picture. Um, but I think there's too many people that put too much stock in to what they're getting from their doctor as far as expectations with what they can expect for a full recovery. And I think as long as you can see it in your mind, as long as you see it in your mind, that's the most important part. There's no one that can tell you that that image in your mind is not true as long as you have it in your mind of getting back to 100%, getting back to where you were before your challenge, your accident, whatever. As long as you have it in your mind, no one can tell you otherwise, and keep working at it until you get there.
How important then is it for people who are struggling with the progress to not let go of the dream, of the goal of them making a recovery that they're expecting to make and not be influenced by others?
Can you say that a different way?
Absolutely. So you mentioned expectations, and sometimes doctors, maybe family, maybe even society says that you can only get this far after traumatic experience. So how important is it to focus on our own expectations that we create for ourselves versus the expectations of others?
Sure. I love this question just because expectations is one of the things I talk about within steps. So, you have to like once you have that picture. Now, these are two different things. So, once you have that picture in your mind, and like I was talking about earlier, no one can take that away from you. Once you have that picture in your mind of that fully recovered person, um, like you have that in your mind, you're working every day, you're taking care of your energy, you're trusting that once you take your first step, your next step's always going to be available to you. It's even, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but at that point, you let go of all expectations, and focusing on minute by minute, hour by hour, and day by day, helps eliminate overwhelm and allows you to implement the step system. Um, because too many people, like, all right, so an ideal, a goal is like it's fine to have. And once you have that, you almost set that on the shelf, like, all right, cool. That's what I'm working towards over here. But then once you're in the nitty gritty, once you're in the day to day, doing every day, doing your exercises, every day doing what the therapist asks you to do, even doing extra exercises, once you're in that day to day, keep moving forward every day, you have to let go of expectations. You can't tie one or the other. Um, you can't tie the big goal to your expectations. Your expectations, God, this sounds so screwy, but your expectations can't be tied to and we were talking about it earlier. Can't be tied to, okay, if I don't reach my goal in 6 months, I'm gonna give up. I'm gonna quit. That's kind of, I don't know. That's not something you should do. You just keep working every day. And like I said, when I was going through my voice issue, I had that moment. I had some tough moments that where I doubted myself, where I got frustrated with myself. But then I resigned myself to, okay, I'm just gonna keep getting up every day, gonna keep moving forward, just keep doing what the specialist, what the therapist, what they tell me to do, as long as I'm continuing to make progress. So, um, you almost have to let go of expectations once you have that goal, that ideal in your mind.
You mentioned overwhelmed and you've mentioned frustration. How much of an impact did overwhelm and frustration have in your life?
Hmm. All right, so I think let me talk about Ovalon first because it's fresh in my brain. I'm right there right now. Um, I think the letting go, like once I'm on the track of getting my like whatever treatment it is, I do it. I have my prescription, if you could call it, of my program. That's a better word for it. Of doing my voice exercises, of going and visiting with the voice specialist once a quarter. Once I have that prescription, it's almost letting go um, of expectations, and that helps reduce overwhelm. I think if you get too locked on to a goal, goals are like it's a good thing to have an ideal to shoot for, have an ideal in your mind. And like I said, if it's in your mind, no one can take it away from you. However, um, if you put too many expectations along with that, like if I don't achieve this goal in 6 months, it has the ability to overwhelm you. Um, you have to let go of all expectations. And I think it's counterintuitive. But what was the second part of your question?
The second part would be the frustration after feeling overwhelmed.
Sure. So the frustration, I've already shared it with my voice issue when I was like, geez, I've been working at this for 6.5, 7 years. I can't I can't catch a break and everything. I already shared that. I didn't share when I was um in the hospital, in the rehab hospital, after I was transported there, I remember I had long days. So I had physical, occupational, and speech therapy, double sessions of those. So I had this particular day, I had my physical, occupational, and speech therapy in the morning. And then I was still in a wheelchair at this time. And my mom, who was with me every day, uh, we were in my room having lunch, and I got frustrated. I got frustrated with myself, and I was looking over my situation, and I just couldn't figure it out. And I remember turning to her and saying, "Am I ever going to be able to walk again?" Like I had that moment of doubt. And she said, "Of course you are. That's what we're doing here, so you can get everything back and we can go home." So this allowed me to like these two moments, I at least what I can remember are the only times that I really got frustrated um with the progress that I was making. And then once I made this adjustment that, oh, okay, I'm like, we're going to get everything, like I'm going to get everything back, and that goes back to 100% recover, like 100% recovery. That's the goal. Um, Once I got back to that, then it was just keep getting up every day and taking my next step. So something you asked me earlier that I want to make sure I hit. You said that what have you been up to lately since our last conversation? This has been really all right. So like my first 3 years, I would say, my first 4 years actually of this journey, and starting Common Goal and working with my mentor, and developing a few keynotes, and speaking on stage at annual conferences for brain injury, and also other organizations that support individuals going through trauma. Like I had it, it's good, and I'm not saying that's not good. That provided an impact to get me to this point. However, I was tying, I think, Terrain, my identity too much to that. So I was thinking that, okay, I'm not being successful unless I'm getting booked for these conferences, these annual conferences, and being able to speak at them, tell my story, build my list, get paid like that. Unless I'm doing that, I'm not fulfilling my purpose. And nothing could be further from the truth. I think the last, and look, I'm not saying I don't want I'm not saying I don't want speaking engagements, but I'm saying I was tying my identity a little bit to that. So I always look back in my journal to see what I was going through 10 years ago and what I was going through a year ago. I do that twice a month. And last year at this time, I was just what I did was I spoke and gave my keynote, 45-minute version of my keynote for the Brain Injury Association of America for their Butch Alterman Memorial webinar series, which they only do twice a year. So that was something that obviously I had to like work on that. I had to like really rehearse and practice that and everything. Then the following month, so December of last year, I was the closing keynote speaker for the Brain Injury Alliance of Vermont at their annual conference. So I had that. I had both those things happen. I had an international speakers bureau reach out to me and say that they wanted me to be. Well, actually, I reached out to them, and they said that they returned my message saying that we want you to be part of our team at A Speaker. So, like, I had a lot of momentum and things going on. Then last year in the spring, in April, I did another webinar for the Brain Injury Alliance of Minnesota. So I was kind of on this, like, in my mind, I was being successful because I was doing these speaking engagements. I think what has changed, and again, I'm not saying I don't want them. What has changed is the impact that I'm having right now. I think it's almost even greater than just doing speaking at these conferences a few times a year, and that's speaking on all these different the podcasts, all these different audiences all over the world. I'm doing 8 to 10 of these a month. So to me, that's fulfilling because I'm being able to spread my message, tell my story, spread my message, share the step system with more and more of the world that I get fulfillment from doing that. That's the most important thing, I think, is that more and more people are learning about the step system. And I can't lose sight of that fact because that's really that's one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is just to get the step system into more and more hands.
Let me ask you, Nick, one final question before we close. I want to give you three wishes. And these are three things you can wish that people knew about this one question. And this question is this: what are three things you wish people knew about not losing their identity after a traumatic experience?
This is a very interesting question because I've talked to, and this is years after my accident, but just because I always thought, oh, okay, I'm the same person. Like I got into my accident and I was in a coma, and then I had to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again, and then I went on with the rest of my life. I feel like I'm a different person because I matured. But it goes a little deeper than that. So I think a few years later, I think it was family, my sister pointed out to me that how I used to behave and how I used to be prior to my accident and how I am now. And I'm like, okay, those are two different people. So I think I was tying my identity too much to the old Nick. Um, that person's gone. Like now, post accident, um, part of it was I was 14 years old, but I'm a different person. And I think a lot of that is maturity, of course, but I think I'm a different person. It took me a while to realize that. Like I said, it took me until a few years ago to realize that. So, for someone that suffered a traumatic injury, um, like a critical and acute injury, um, don't tie your identity to who you are now, to who you were before your accident, your injury, because they're two different people. You just have to focus on doing the best